I am the Spirit, and it is up to you to discern whether or not this Spirit is calling for a shift in consciousness that grounds into the institutions of earth in a way that acknowledges we are one. And so the Spirit at any time can take the form of our name. And my name is Savaya. But it's not the name that defines us. It is the will to see the name beyond any name that gives us a unique experience. I was tuning in to what might be something that I could say, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I am also willing to let go of any preconceived ideas, because if we are too attached to something that we know, we might have a difficult time in awakening to a bigger picture where the planets and the stars are constantly influencing the evolution of this planet and any planet. And science does not currently have the proof in the sense of consciousness, culture, civilization. But the time is coming where we begin to see the world beyond time, beyond a finite beginning and end. And so, it is up to you to discern whether or not what is shared connects to the whole of not just humanity, but also the whole. And what I see is a ring, a circle. Do you see what I see? And so, practically, there is a need to demand intolerance for the absence of our experience. The Gospel of Thomas says, if we don't bring out what is within us, what is within us will destroy us. And I might add that it was that which was temporary that causes destruction. And what is within us that is permanent, that creates construction, not just in a physical sense, but in a fundamental sense, so we're all doing our best, while at the same time we all know there are clues, there are synchronicities, there are geometrical experiences that connect us to the constellations, the atoms, in a new way, where we don't see ourselves so much as this limited, small, based on genetics, based on upbringing, based on childhood, identification. So I want to take a step back and acknowledge it is reasonable many of us work hard to live, but at certain stages of humanity, if there are not enough of those who will put in the final puzzle piece, if there was such a thing as a final puzzle piece, but there are cycles within civilizations, and if there are not certain keys that are inserted in certain doors, we will not be able to pass a certain level where the civilization either collapses or there is a large experience which may sometimes be referred to as the wiping out of the people, which is on some level it's being projected, and there's a certain amount of force, but the question is, do we let it stop us from sharing that there is an elite and an ego that is trying to stop us from realizing that it is us that creates the conditions for ourselves and others? But one person has the ability to send a shockwave at different moments. And it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. It could be a small act of kindness. It can be playing around. It can be a variety of things that I can't even name because it is for you to name, or it is for you to bring in to this world, to show others there is more to this world. And a large part of our ego does not want to take accountability, that it is creating its own experience. But it is equally important that we call out the elite, the forces trying to divide us. But part of the division people have is based on their projection that there is an elite that is creating all the problems in our society. Does this go up? It does go up a little bit more. And so there's a certain balance. And how do we walk it is what we're asking each other each day. We're asking ourselves each day. And what will give us the greatest amount of growth and the greatest amount of, let's just say, decency, excellence, prosperity? The most high is if we go to the lowest and share all the way back up. So there is an alternate system to our economy that recognizes the spiritual economy. But first we have to acknowledge the physical economy will fall. Profit-based rather than people-based interests will fall into the dustbin of history. But those who will be the last to fall in an outward way, even though on the inside they have fallen to the lowest, some of them, a lot of them, the lowest levels of consciousness. Now, there's a part of me that has a difficulty sharing the spirit because it believes an mind-altering substance can determine the genuine expansion of the spirit when in fact it may be the individual that determines whether or not it uses the substance, but it also recognizes the substance as part of the same substance everywhere. And that there is more that can be said, but for now, the Spirit wishes to say that Gabriel, Gavriel, and Savaya form three names that he is alchemizing, he is synthesizing into everyone's name right now. And he recognizes there is no ultimate level of wisdom. But he also recognizes there are forces, even mind-altering substances, to try to suggest it is someone else that determines our experience, the individual's experience. And what can raise the individual's experience is the recognition of the collective as the individual. And how do we do this is what we ask ourselves every day, like I said. But our voice, our heart, The discernment of the Christ consciousness, the Buddhic consciousness, the consciousness of the Divine Mother, will see the Father in everything. But that Father is not separated from the Mother. And that Mother wishes to say, there can be an increase in the name we all have when we can see our mark is inscribed with our name wherever we go, every thought, every emotion, many of which you cannot control until you let go of trying to control many of them, but still having some discipline, some determination to see beyond the good versus evil, the right versus wrong. And still take a stand and call out the Satanatic was part of a being named Satanaku, according to certain knowledge, that suggested he, like Lucifer, attained a very high level. But certain beings knew how to manipulate, not because so much they wanted to get something in return, but they felt like they should determine the world without the co-agreement with others who also had a very high knowledge. And so, because that being that supposedly influenced Earth and its history it seems that the Divine Mother would say, this being could not die and be incarcerated by the lofty civilizations from which certain beings, known as leaders, counselors, elders. Politician is not necessarily the vibration, because a lot of politician vibratory considerations are very low. So anyways, there is more, obviously, to what was being said. And we can always say more because the end always leads to a new beginning. But for now, we can mark everything we do with a universal name. When we can begin to step back from having to do. And that can be seen from a material physical perspective, or it can be also simultaneously a spiritual perspective. But without these categorizing labels, can we let go of having to do and still do our part? Welcome to the journey.